Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Actual VR Podcast, the weekly podcast where we sit down and break down the latest in VR, AR, XR, immersive tech news, and we talk to industry professionals about how they're using and producing immersive content and tech in their respective fields. On this episode, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Julian Messina. He's been a member of the team for a few years now, but we're going to be talking about those pucker moments that we've had on jobs together. And also, Julian's going to share his process on how he creates spatial audio in sound design. But first, before that, we're going to be having a sit-down talk about the actual VR show, the topics that we talked about in the actual VR show that comes out every Monday with our producer and all-around swell guy, Casey Chahine. This is the Actual VR Podcast. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the part of the show where we take a deeper dive into the things that we talked about on the actual VR show. If you didn't get a chance, it comes out every Monday. But this past week, we talked a little bit about GoPro, the Hero 8 camera, and their Fusion Max. So it's a second iteration of the Fusion camera. We had a Westworld VR experience that was actually released today, at the day of recording. And I talked a little bit about the behind-the-scenes look at a music video that I worked on this past weekend with, if you watched last week, Robert Coomber. He was on that project. And then later on in this episode of the podcast, we have Julian Messina, who is a big part of that as well. But yeah, this is just part of the show where we bring on some friends of the company, some friends of mine. And actually today we have a very special friend, a very special guest, Casey.
Hey,
Chahine.
what's going on?
What's going on? He's a super producer.
That feels good. That's actually nice to say.
The friendly neighborhood
and I'm not
sound
gonna
man.
pretend like I didn't give myself that moniker ahead of time.
Well, I gave you your mom's kryptonite.
I like that.
We're gonna keep the theme going.
I like that.
Yeah. So you were there when we filmed the show.
Yeah.
You had a physical response when I mentioned that there was a Westworld VR experience.
It's not often that I have a visceral. It is often that I have. I'm a pretty excitable person, to be honest. But when it comes down to the doing this show, actually, by the way, for anyone who's watching, I am cutting right now. I'm producing while I'm talking.
Yeah,
This is wild.
I was gonna go into. He's see, when I said super producer, he's the producer of this show, and he's gonna be doing both. He's gonna be both a guest and producing the show while we're doing this. He's extremely talented. It's great to have you on the team.
Thanks,
knowing that it's all run smoothly because of the hard work that you put in.
Well, man, this is I do want to take a break for a second to say that this has been a work in progress since May. This set, this table that Kyle built, these cabinets that right here behind us.
Yeah.
These cabinets that Nick and I built, we designed. It's all modular. We can put it all away when we can play some VR, and we can take it all out when we're time to record a podcast.
This table folds in half, kind of.
It kind of.
It's work in progress.
But yeah, it's been an amazing show so far, and it's like an honor to be on part of the team, and then to be on the first couple episodes. I'm on episode 3.
Episode 3? Yeah, I think we're on episode 3 now.
As a producer, I should know that.
as the owner of the company, we should know that. Yeah. Let's educate guys.
So with that to say,
the Westworld
about being excitable. When we talked last week, 2 weeks ago, talked about No Man's Sky coming out in VR.
Oh, yeah.
That's been my favorite game ever. I love games where I can kind of be alone and then just go mine resources and basically just be super productive in a virtual space. And imagine it being wrapped around my entire visual space. It's crazy.
We got to put you in it. We'll do that after the show.
I can't wait. But when you said Westworld, I flipped. I was so excited. I love that show. Like it was one of the only shows that and Game of Thrones are the ones that I go on Reddit and I go through all the fan theories and stuff. And it's just great. It's a Jonathan Nolan show, Christopher Nolan's brother.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And, I can't remember her name, but they wrote it together, and season 3 will be out soon. But it's crazy that they're doing a VR experience.
And this VR experience is based on season 2. From what I understand,
that would make sense. I would say it.
They'd be backtracking a little bit if they went season 1 with it.
Are you familiar with the show?
Well, I recently came across an HBO subscription that will allow me to catch up, but I have not seen. So a friend of mine, Jason Hedge, if you're watching, I'm listening. I've had numerous people tell me to watch the show. I'm going to watch. I have not seen an episode. I don't even know what it's about.
Blade Runner meets the Hall of Presidents.
Ooh, okay.
So it's just they set up, and that's kind of the cool thing that I think. That's why I kind of freaked when the VR experience about this. Now get this, the Delos company. That's the company in the show.
Uh-huh.
They've created a world of robots, essentially robots that are like humans, but they're humanoid robots, and they're programmed to be subservient and to serve to the whims and fancies of the upper echelon of society.
That could never go wrong.
Oh, bud. Oh, bud. Well, you can adjust it. Like what happens is like you follow a couple different protagonists and a bunch of different storylines that you don't really know how they match up and meet up. But what they do so excellently is build this very interesting, compelling world where what is subservience, what is sentience, and that's what the first season tackles sentience, whereas the second season tackles like resolve, absolution, and this third one is going to be crazy. It's got Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. Pretty excited.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Evan Rachel Wood, I think is her name. She plays Dolores, and then Tessa Thompson from Thor Ragnarok.
Can we just pretend that we're in confession right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't have you on the camera. I'm trying. I get so excited.
Well, confession. You can't see me anyway.
Okay, I can see you now.
I've never seen an episode of Breaking Bad.
Really?
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah, I've been missing
You're busy
out.
running a company, man. I get it. I totally get it.
Oh, it's I really want to. Yeah. It's a big commitment. Yeah. It's like Game of Thrones. I've only seen the first episode of Game of Thrones. These are all really great shows that everybody tells me I need to watch.
I mean, I used to do a podcast about Game of Thrones called "We Drink and We Know Things," and that's a reference from the show if you ever watched it. But it's just a show where we just got pissed drunk and recap the show, and it was a really good time. That's really all it's for. It's just fan service. Yeah. Breaking Bad, that's art.
Really?
Mad Men, that's art.
Oh, which you showed me. I've heard of Mad Men, and I know that obviously running a company, I appreciate the sales process and like a good pitch, a good story. And then we watched some of the highlights of some of the best pitches in the show, and oh my God, I was captivated.
It's not a spaceship. It's a time machine going back and forth. I'm done. That's my Don Draper. That's as good as a Don Draper as I can be.
Lincoln. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, or whatever.
Absolutely amazing.
Hyundai.
Carousel.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, to Westworld, I think it's fascinating that a show about a show that is about a near future where immersive tech is actual reality,
and ingrained into society.
They're doing a game in a headset that's putting you in the world where immersive tech is a second thought, and that sort of meta, we lost the light. It's fine.
Yeah,
that sort of meta take on it is it's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm really really excited to play it and see it. And before meeting you, I'd never done any kind of immersive tech at all.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, you knew that the first time. Look at this man. This man's a showman. This is a showman right here. But yeah. So I'm really excited to play it and see what it's all about. And I don't really care if it's canon or not. I just want to be in that world.
I wonder. Yeah, the only thing I don't know is I don't know if it's a like a ride along experience or if it's fully explorable and you interact with the story and there's a whole. I would imagine a lot of times in the past that it was like it's a fully explorable, interactable. That's. I forgot the show that it may have been Westworld. There's a 360 video experience. It was kind of like a story on rails where you're you start out in a helicopter at night, and you get out and you're searching for
Bernard.
Maybe.
Yeah, it might have been. Was that the AT&T store?
I don't think so. I don't know. I have no idea. It was a while ago, but it was one of the first times I'd seen a TV show use like immersive media to promote the show as a complement.
That feels very on brand for what HBO does. Like as you recall, if you guys have watched the actual VR show, we talked about the Game of Thrones experience that came out.
That's true.
Which headset?
Magic Leap.
Magic Leap.
Yeah, which is a mixed reality headset.
Very cool.
Augmented reality, mixed reality.
And since AT&T owns HBO,
and AT&T has a partnership with Magic Leap.
Exactly. So it all makes sense that it's all coming together.
Yeah,
it all comes together, just like the plot of Westworld until the last episode of second season.
Not bitter.
No, I'm not bitter. I'm just like, what? It's fantastic. But to say that about hardware, there was another thing about hardware.
Yeah. So the GoPro camera, which not a fan of GoPro as a company. I owe a lot. I owe my this company to the first ever camera rig that I had, which was 6 GoPro Hero 4 Blacks in an array. I would not have been able to get started in 360 video were it not for those cameras. But to be fair, GoPro didn't have an effect on that so much as the company Freedom 360 did,
which created
the array.
Okay.
So I owe more really to Freedom 360, but those cameras allowed me to do that. But they came out with the Omni, which was a great product. A lot of people were really excited about that, and the reason why is that you could turn all the cameras on at the same time.
So then you can sync them.
We talked about that.
I'm pretty. I almost said hardware agnostic. I'm hardware illiterate for the most part.
Right.
So when you say like the array, now just help a dummy like me.
Yeah.
The array, I kind of have an idea, but
it's just kind of how the cameras are positioned.
Okay.
In the in a rig so what they did, Freedom 360, the company that I alluded to, they created a 3D printed mold of where you could set these cameras to where they would always be the same. It's a housing for the cameras.
Okay.
They designed the housing for it. So if housing is a better word.
Is there still a market for arrays and things like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, less of like GoPro solutions for the longest time. There was another company that was called 360 Heroes. They had some like legal issues with their name. They changed it to some a different name, but they had 3D printed, but it was like a cheaper plastic. But so Freedom 360 had a better product overall. It had its own little quirks, but yeah, now it's mainly the market is for taking higher end cameras like RED cameras and taking some of these cinematic level cameras and putting them into 360 video arrays. For the most part, the level that GoPro had fixed or solved is now being fixed by Insta360, which comes out with the Insta360 Pro, the all-in-one cameras.
Yeah.
That are just much more viable solutions.
How far are we till we get a really? And we talked about this 2 weeks ago on the show, and I'm just kind of want to call back to it.
Yeah.
How far are we out until we have a widely adopted mass production consumer grade 360 camera that's like everybody has? Like the iPhone makes for portrait mode, makes everybody feel like they're a photographer.
Theoretically, you could take the integration that makes the most sense is take something that somebody already has and then just make it to where it's capable of capturing 360 video or 360 images. So that it would make sense that your phone would be able to do it. We already have lenses on the front and back. Technically, you could but what you need is a fisheye lens, which is not conducive for putting in your pocket, laying on tables, like this big bulbous lens sticking out. But I think the Insta360 1X right now is the closest thing we have to that.
Cool.
It's a little bit more on the pricey side at $400. I mean, compared to a cell phone, it's cheap, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those that it ties directly to your phone. Like you don't need a computer at all to make 360 videos with this
cool.
camera. Yeah, and that's Ben Claremont is if you get a chance to check him out on YouTube and Instagram. Okay. He started out with like Tiny Planet videos with the Theta S, which is a Ricoh Theta S, which is another 360 camera. Really good at stills, but now he uses he's a bunch of different cameras, but he's a great example of somebody who takes consumer level or prosumer level cameras and creates really unique content. And he's always, I just remember over the past couple of years, anytime I'd see him post things at different forums, like he's trying to find workarounds to where he didn't have to use really cumbersome editing software.
Right.
He wanted to be able to just like go straight to his phone and do everything from his phone.
That's pretty cool.
So he's been pioneering that whole movement. It's been really cool because he was like the 360 hero guy. I forgot he did a rebranding to go just to Ben Claremont, and that was really good. I'm really happy for him doing that. And
he's been able to break away and
yeah. So that's been really cool to see that. But the 1X is probably the closest thing you can get, and I think that is a better solution than as excited as I am about a new GoPro Hero 8. Which has the potential. We talked about the Freedom 360, the camera array. Technically, you could take that same camera array if you use the 8 and get 12K video.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice.
Who has the bandwidth for 12K video? I don't.
Nobody. Yeah, I mean, but what it will do is create some really amazing stationary shots, but you don't want to move without the audio sync.
Yeah.
Moving it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And also too, I can get into the hardware. I can nerd out about the hardware all day, but it's I'm more excited about what Insta360 is doing than I am GoPro.
I'm into that.
But it is news. It is. They are still trying to make an effort.
They're trying to make
Yes.
things are happening.
Things are
This is wild. Things are happening.
crazy.
I'm
We're in the
having such a good time.
future.
I'm having such a good time. I just want to take a break. I'm having such a good time.
Yeah.
The last thing that you talked about, and I want to tee it up because you talked about it extensively when we did record this episode a little out of order. We recorded with Julian Messina first. You worked on a project this past weekend with Julian Messina and last week's segment 2 guest Rob Coomber.
Yes.
And I want to know more about this particular project because I really want to plug it and tee it up for the people that are going to be listening to the next segment.
This has been when we talk about like creative projects that I'm really excited about, like just ones that there's no client, there's nobody paying for this project. This is all because everybody on that set wants to be there, and they're excited about the potential. This will be the first. The concept for this has been planned for probably the last 6 months. We started meeting and talking, and we were trying to figure out the cameras and the audio situation. But yeah, it's a unique look at what Blake Ruby, who is the artist, his process in recording this song. We start out in the control room, or in the you have that big soundboard in front of you, and there's you start looking at him, and then what you don't realize is there's another Blake behind you, and it sets the tone for the rest of the video.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So, and then he walks out into the main sound studio or the studio. You see all the instruments. You see these like 5 instruments with empty chairs, but you know that there's been a clone earlier. So, we kind of teed up a little bit of intrigue, and then the performance starts. And we have some other cool tricks that happen when the performance starts that I'm really excited about that I've never tried before. Some of this stuff is brand new for me. And the way we filmed it was actually really fun too. This is really complicated. A lot of like sitting there thinking about the process. You had to, before each take, you're just like, okay, make sure everything's in line, make sure the story makes sense, everything's going to run smoothly. Order of operations. Yeah. So had you met Rob and Julian before?
I met Rob and Julian actually when we started talking. When phase 2 of Actuality VR show began.
Oh yeah.
We were sitting over here just spitballing, figuring things out. I was writing up. That's actually when I came up with the format for the show. It was the first time I met them. Yeah. They're good dudes.
They are.
I was fascinated by them.
They're amazing.
They're knowledgeable, thoughtful, really engaged, which is super
good
hard
people.
to find these days.
They're good people.
Very good people. You got good people.
Got good people.
We had a cool team.
Yeah. It's they make such an impression. I saw when Robert was on the show last week, he was more animated than I think I've ever seen him. He was really excited to be here. I loved it.
It was funny. He was sitting there. He was I got like you guys went to go do something, and I was sitting in here with him. And I was showing him the take.
Yeah,
and he goes, "Thank God." He goes, "I was nervous." He goes, "I shaved for this." And you looked cute as hell, my man.
It was you're a good looking dude, Rob. Yeah. You're a good looking dude. That was
go catch that episode. Yeah, that was really interesting stuff.
That was fun.
Really interesting.
I think that's we've talked to Jared and we've talked to Patrick. We've talked to Nick. And what was different about this the episodes with Robert and Julian is that their technical knowledge and how much they wanted to talk about specifically the technicalities of the projects that they've worked on. It was really insightful. Me knowing them, having worked with them on those projects, hearing there were things that they said that I had no idea they did, and just the depth of what they had to do was pretty cool.
Me being the insecure guy that I am, I thought that they were bragging for a second. I'm like, bragging. Oh, it's a beautiful array, Julian. Oh, I get it. No, but I mean, seriously, I'm so fascinated, and I love to be around. Interesting people who are very passionate about what they're doing, and I'm really super pumped about what we're doing. Who we got? Who's here?
Who's walking in the door?
Who dat?
Okay. I don't know. Nope.
See, look at that. Peek behind the curtain. Literally.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
But yeah, man, I think we're there.
Yeah.
I don't want to go make this one go too long. Do you have anything else to say? I'm not hosting this thing.
I mean, let's say it at the same time. Next we have Julian Messina talking about audio engineering, VR, and
bragging about mic arrays. There it is. That screwed me up a little bit. Oh man, give me some of that. I love you, buddy.
Yeah, love you too, man.
Hey guys, rate, subscribe, review. We're available on Spotify, Apple, anywhere podcasts are found, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, eventually, JewishFarmersOnly.com.
JewishFarmers.com.
Have a nugget. I don't know what I'm doing.
And we're here. We're in the studio. We're talking to. Last week we talked to Robert Cooper, who I had mentioned was an intern of mine and a good friend, and we told the stories how we first met. Well, what the other half of that story is another friend of mine, another intern turned really good friend. And we've worked on several projects together. We've had a lot of ups. We've had a lot of downs. But ultimately, this has been an absolutely wonderful friendship that has evolved over the years, for the last 4 years. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Julian Messina.
Hey, guys.
They can't hear the wave. We were talking before we turned on the cameras about yelling into the mic, and you had mentioned that you had a moment recently this past weekend where you kind of scared yourself with a yell that was so what, and he hasn't told me what it was yet.
It's cumulative. It's like cumulative things, you know. Like you realize that you love something when you get that impassioned to the point where you just have that moment. You just, it's loud, it's intense, it scares yourself. Sometimes it scares everybody else around you for a moment, and they see you smiling, laughing, and like, oh, it's okay. It's just a bit of minor crazy today.
Yeah, what can you tell me what it was?
Oh, absolutely. So, and Robert's here too, checking in on this as well. So we all shot a virtual reality music video.
Super cool project.
Super cool project. I'll get into the fun bits in a second, but it was a trying project in that it just demanded so much focus.
Yes.
And sessions I've done previously, it requires that same kind of dedication to just getting the best takes that you can. And what makes this so challenging is like when you do video and audio at the same time, and you're putting it into a traditional recording setting with a very untraditional format of recording, it gets tense. So it was and it was really just equipment failures. It was just like when we had Blake on the piano, it happened during the piano takes.
It was all the piano.
It was all the piano takes. And what got me so heated was just like, we were going through so many takes, and it wasn't even an issue on the artist side. It
11
was just
takes, I think.
11 takes. We were at 12, but we had minor things happen where Pro Tools crapped out on us for like the first time in those like couple days since we were running. And Blake is taking amazing pass after amazing pass, and we really just wanted to get it right. And then there was a point where the light went out. And the whole lighting structure changed.
The camera failed.
Yeah, and it was that last one where it was arguably Blake's best take, and so
it was so good. It was so good.
It was so good, and it was just as soon as that camera cut out, and I just heard you go, cut from the room, and then that take.
I had my head on the ground for a solid 10 seconds before I called cut. Like I just had to just let it hit me.
Yeah, and so it's just like it's a thing that you can't do anything about it. But I think what makes it hard is you realize you're witnessing great art being performed, and he's doing his thing, and it's up to us.
Yeah.
And then just something happens that's outside of our control, despite how much we prepare for it. And that's the thing that makes me so excited about recording and capturing on location, for instance.
Right.
And it also is the most frustrating thing, because you're just always on the line of like, did you get the right bit of information that we needed?
Yep. That was with that shoot. So you've worked with me on several projects. You actually did some field recording with me on a few projects. That very different environment, a different type of stressful environment, being on location, doing audio. But this past weekend, it was we were in a controlled studio environment, and which has its own stresses, its own technical challenges. So tell me a little bit about the setup. So
Yeah.
We can't. This was a spatial. This project will incorporate spatial audio, but not just something from, we talked about the tetrahedral mic or like a spatial mic. It wasn't just captured with one microphone.
No. This project had its challenges through and through, in the best kind of ways. Because for me, I love things that are stupidly complex, hard to come up with. Like in other people that I track music with, like I remember setting up a session in Ocean Way just to track a couple guitar parts, and we're using like 16 channels on the console, and I've got sounds running through the main tracking room just to get like the natural acoustics of it. It was just stupid. And we were there from, 8 p.m. till 7 in the morning kind of thing. And it's one of those things where it makes it more fun, but at the end of the day, like there's some detail in there that maybe other people haven't gotten, and maybe it sounds terrible. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like, go for it.
Yeah.
So with this project, it was that same kind of mentality of, I had the pleasure of sitting in on a tracking session with Blake Ruby, who, by the way, if you don't know who he is, look him up on Spotify. His record Space is incredible. And I had the pleasure of sitting in with him while he's recording some of his sessions, and I'm watching this kid go from instrument to instrument, and also going into that same tracking room that we were in, recording himself. And it wasn't like a stressful process. He was in a great time through it, but it was like that. He was used to that kind of workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I'm sure he's had engineers sitting on to help, through those stages, but it was clear like this was something special.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of want to segue what we did just to kind of allude to that. It's like there was a potential for great content, and that's what got me excited. And then Rob and I started talking about like the logistics of it. It's like, is this something that we could do? And then we started piecing everything together. It's like Kyle's a great videographer. I've got great assistant engineers. Robert's got this whole like mind frame to handle this like challenging task, as well as like thinking on the post side of it when we got to integrate everything.
Yeah. So
it was really important to me that like we do something profound and difficult with the right people in place.
Yes.
And that segues into this session. So the way that I tracked it was I wanted it to be Blake's sound. And that was from the get-go. I told him, like, I want you to set up your microphones the way you traditionally set them up on your instruments. I want you to get your sound.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, too, I knew I was going to set up to be capturing ambisonics. And then I wanted to also try out a surround microphone array. And I've been reading...
Which, if we get a picture of that, I'd love to be able to put that into the... To the show. I think it'd be absolutely amazing. Yeah, Patrick, who you guys have met... actually, earlier, our first segment guest, he...
Great photographer.
Yeah, he was documenting a lot of those photos. But yeah, so you had that surround array, which was absolutely intense.
Yeah, and that was something that I'd kind of put together after reading a lot of articles. Actually, Robert pointed me in the direction of some stuff that was going on at Abbey Roads by this guy, Merrick Stiles, and a bunch of other brilliant engineers. And they were trying to apply... music production for virtual reality. So they had, a number of crazy miking arrays, but after reading through some of their AES stuff, I saw this one that was called an OCT, which was an optimal cardioid triangle, and they did it with 9 microphones. We actually dropped it down to 5 because I thought, we could probably get something good out of that, plus the ambisonic microphone we were going to be using. So we had all that going on at the same time we were tracking traditionally, and then plus in the style of the video, the video is going to be more or less Blake and all of his clones.
Yes.
Which means that we had the advantage of being able to overdub everything like I would have traditionally with him, where it's like one instrument at a time, Blake. Let's build your session as you go. Exactly.
That was really cool to see on my end, be able to see that process of seeing you work. This was the first project that we had worked on together, where we had the team of people that we'd all worked with, but they were all working on the thing that they're best at.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was really cool to see like how well we worked together, how well this whole process went, to be able to see you guys in your element. It was really cool to see. It was I mean, absolutely amazing. But
well, that was the thing that I wrote a few notes, and that was the thing that like this project demanded, which was, you have to trust each other in the heat of the battle, so to speak. To like, they've got
everybody's got a job to do.
They've got their job to do, and like I know with confidence like we can do something great.
Yeah.
Hey guys, can I ask a question quick? Just for the listeners and the viewers who aren't familiar with the project, can you give them like a quick elevator pitch on what exactly you guys were capturing?
Yeah, so essentially this is a 360 video virtual reality experience that it's got a little bit of a story element, but essentially it is a music video for a song that he's going to be releasing with his album coming out in October.
Likely October.
Likely October. But the concept is this, that you start out in this control room in a normal
studio,
in a recording studio.
Columbia Studio A in Nashville,
And you get to join Blake on this, what it's like to record an album. But what we've done is we've combined all of those instruments that would be done individually, and you're seeing it all happen at the same time. So you're in the center of the room. There's some other little Easter eggs or some different things that we did to make this flow really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're sitting in the middle of this recording studio, being able to see him just play every instrument and work through it all. It's really cool. There's also going to be a behind the scenes documentary about Riley. Did that.
Riley Weimner was shooting behind the scenes all at the same time that we were capturing this in VR, and then also tracking everything almost in like a traditional sense. So I mean, you had 4 different angles, because not only was Riley doing the BTS, but he was also shooting from the off angles of the camera. As if it was a traditional music video anyway. So there were like 4 different things happening simultaneously.
Yeah, and we were able to do that because just by the way that we captured it. What we did is we used the Insta360 Pro camera, which has 6 lenses.
Yeah.
We had 5 different instruments, drums being one of them, so it took up 2 lenses. But essentially, we were able to frame it to where we shot 1 lens at a time, minus the drums, to where we had this, this degree field of view for each shot, and then everything outside of that, as long as we weren't casting shadows or getting in the shot, we could document, and we could. It allowed me to be able to direct in the room with him without having to do a whole lot of work in post on the video side, working within After Effects and doing some composition work. So effectively being able to accomplish this all within stitching software.
Right. Well, plus, I mean, again, we were talking audio, but the lighting factor, I know, was an extreme challenge, I'm sure, for you, because I know you're experienced in all this. It's like, well, what do we do in a scenario like this where we're going to be masking things over and trying to keep things consistent? I know, the scare was like no one hits the camera.
Oh yeah, that was probably on my end. That was the most stressful. So essentially, we had in this one room, we had to shoot all of the instruments, and the camera could not move an inch.
Nope.
Couldn't, like, if it got bumped, we would have to not only start that take, the whole project would have to start over again, like day one. So that was I mean, that was the most stressful for me. We couldn't, and the time came where we'd finished the instruments.
Yeah.
Like, we had checked all the boxes. It's like, okay, we can move the camera now. But inside, I was just like, can we? Like, let's just check it one more time. Let's just go over one more time, because once that camera moves, we can't get anything back.
Right. And it's like, it just is like 3 days of work with, also working with the artist too. It's like, it's a hard thought to imagine, like, we didn't.
It'd be heartbreaking. I would imagine from his point of view, knowing that he'd have to perform all that again, it'd be tough to get in that space again.
Right.
It would have to be another, like, we have to plan.
Like,
the amount of planning that you guys did. So how many total microphones did, roughly?
Roughly, it ranged from probably 30 to 40.
Yeah. In addition to all the things that come along with those microphones and all the additional equipment and the stands, and like, if you were, I can't wait for you guys to see a picture of the studio.
It's pretty. Like, I've had wonderful opportunities to be like an additional worker at Ocean Way, and I've seen some amazing orchestral setups. But this one just felt really unique, and it was unique. But I mean, you could tell that with limited resources, you're trying to come up with something kind of insane. And Robert actually put together the surround tree, and that in and of itself was terrifying, because we had, close to $10,000 worth of equipment hanging in the air, and we had to
the stand almost broke.
And actually, it was really funny. The stand that we were using, the Starboard SB1, which is a phenomenal stand, by the way. I'm not touting on it. There was an early piece that they'd used, and it fractured due to stress. As somebody else had hung weight on it. We thought it was us. later we found out because I came forward to the studio manager. I was like, listen, I got to show you something. This is kind of concerning. I need to let you know I've already done all my weight tests. Like, this should not have happened. But fortunately, he had a new part, and we were able to fix it. But
yeah, that was clutch.
We had a lot. There were a lot of variables in that, and plus, Robert was saying like, not only do we have this surround array that's up in the air that we're nervous about, but there's a camera beneath it too.
It was hanging over a camera.
It was hanging over a camera.
That's what we
too.
call in the industry a pucker moment.
It's a pucker moment for sure. But again, it wasn't something that was just thrown together.
Right.
I mean, Rob himself spent hours just making sure that the torques were right, the weighting's right, the cabling was right, everything was set.
I was fully confident.
But really, at the end of it, like when this is all wrapped and done, you're gonna get to experience Blake with all of his clones, not only playing the instruments and singing, and doing a little bit of performing on top of that, but he's also in the tracking room engineering, and you get to see these many different facets of that.
Yeah.
So it's the full gambit.
Definitely. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit because that project is, and we'll continue to keep the viewers,
there's so much
listeners
to talk about
up to date. I want to talk. So, speaking of pucker moments.
Yeah.
So, we did my company. We did a project for Angry Orchard through Five Stone, another studio here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And Julian, you were my go-to guy. I brought you. We got some audio while we were there. We were capturing spatial audio. We didn't know if they were going to use it in post.
Yeah.
But we captured while we were there. So you did some in-field, some audio capture in the field.
Very MacGyver for this situation. But yeah, nonetheless, we got something.
You pulled a Robert, and you were like in the trees, and you like plucked an apple. So we had that sound. You just go missing in the Angry. So we went to New York. We flew to Walden, New York, to film it at Angry Orchard's Orchard.
Yeah.
And there were just like hours where we knew that Julian was somewhere in the orchard capturing some gnat sounds.
Getting bit by every fucking bug in New York.
Oh, it was the flies. We'll bleep it out.
Okay.
But yeah, so we had some technical challenges. So we didn't end up using spatial audio for that project. They used, the end result was an augmented reality app for their labels, for their bottles.
Right.
So they didn't need the audio. They had the voiceover from their spokesman. But we had some, part of that job was that we were flying the Insta360 Pro, same camera we used on that music video shoot.
Yeah.
And it was flying, hanging from an Inspire 1, Inspire 2 drone. Inspire 2.
Yeah.
Which is not technically supposed to be able to hold this camera.
Nope.
So the whole weekend was a pucker moment. But I remember sitting in we sat there in the hotel room the night before, trying to figure out like some redundancies for safety for the camera. Because obviously we had the camera attached via the pole. It was attached. It had redundancies on the actual drone itself. But we had these cable ties. We were trying to figure out how we were going to feed this cable through the camera that had an active fan in it.
Bro, we had cable ties and like fishing lines. Just all these like.
And it was unnecessarily long to be able to feed that wire in, but we did it, and I was really happy. We had some wind issues with the drone, but all of the finished video looked great, and we didn't have to worry about anything falling, which was the most important.
Yeah, I mean that was an amazing shoot for a couple reasons. I think it was just a classic scenario of hurry up and wait. I mean, it was definitely a very professional set that we got to be a part of.
And that was cool too, because there were multiple production companies there filming different mediums, for different applications.
All the same, and smart. It's like we recently did that. It's like get everything you can while you're there.
Exactly.
And the fact that they went for the VR aspect too, that was amazing.
We used the bonsai rig, which is Brom Katz, I believe. He created this bonsai rig. What it essentially allowed you to do is take 4 Sony A7S Mark II cameras with 8mm lenses on them and put them in an array. It looked amazing. It's a very cool looking camera. Camera setup. We had the H2N mounted on the top. Right, it was mounted on the top.
Yeah, just on top.
On a little shock mount, and then but it was really cool. This is the first time that I had used this in the field, that camera in the field. while also you were helping me do all this, which you don't have a background in video. Actually, we joked on the set. Like there's a So it was very challenging, but and I think it was in those moments when you're able to be in your zone, but also we have to take it out. I knew I could trust you to do like we kind of forged that.
I can follow directions, but I can't take a photo to save my life. I can't take a good photo.
Yeah. Hey, Julian, could you get some behind the scenes? Can you get some?
Sure.
Okay. You got me. I got that really cool profile picture though. Yeah, that was
something
cool.
good came out of it. For every 1,000 crappy photos,
you get
or I guess
good.
1,000,000 in my case.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool project, and it took a while for it to be implemented, but it was awesome. And I want to just touch. We don't have a whole lot of time here, but I do want to talk just very briefly. So we talked about Paranormal Contact with Jared. We talked about the VR ghost hunting show.
Yeah,
and what we ended up doing is a proof of concept to help get it into some festivals. We had to create an app for it. Well, with that opportunity came Spatial Audio.
Yeah.
And to be able to use this as an example moving forward of what a horror experience sounds like with Spatial Audio. Yeah. So there were some challenges there as well. This was going to be for, we put this on an app in Unity for the Gear VR headset.
Right.
What was your overall experience with doing the sound design for that?
Well, that's a funny thing, because I know that project had its own rocks on the road, but what I actually really ended up loving about it, same thing with the Cardi B Swisher Sweets thing, is like the limited resources thing. Puts you in a confined box where you got to come up with something. And I remember like getting some of the deliverables from you, and you're like, okay, this is going to be what it is, but let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah.
And again, talking about limited resources, it's like, I'm a Pro Tools guy through and through, and Pro Tools was just not even, I believe, at that ambisonics level where I could even incorporate that. And so I had to go to Reaper, and I ended up loving Reaper now. I think it's an incredible DAW to anyone who's thinking about it, and great way to deal with multi-channel and spatial stuff. But, we were dealing with a few newbie sound captures, and to try and correct that and then spatialize it, because you get all this like background noise and maybe some distortions, and you kind of got to play off of that a little bit and treat the sound design as like, okay, it's got to be kind of rough. So the way I like to think about sound design is a lot like a layered kind of situation, like a sphere almost. And I start from what I can hear on the outermost edges of an environment, and then I work my way in to what's closest. So I had stuff going on where like, I got Rob in the studio, and we were just recording a bunch of like kind of eerie like breath sounds and stuff like
I
that.
remember that.
And I had those like moving all around the video, kind of going past you, just to try and like flare up some chills.
Yeah.
There were also some points where I utilized a spatial mix, but I also took advantage of this stereo headlock to throw binaural stuff in, and that some of that binaural ASMR stuff where like. Oh, I know. The funny part, actually, it's extremely effective, because if you think about it, like I could kind of give you the sensation of someone's breathing behind
down
your neck all of a sudden, and you trigger that like a theater event.
Yeah.
So you're creating a soundscape that plays off the story a bit, and you're trying to kind of find the tone, and then when that sets in, you trigger that event more or less.
Yeah.
And so, as that's building, like what sounds kind of come off. I know there was one particular angry spirit, and like it starts getting really, really tense, and I start throwing like ear ringing sounds just to try and give you that sensation that something's coming at you, the viewer. Now it's not just them in the room that you're distanced from. Like now you're involved in this endeavor. So that's essentially like how I try and think of it. It's like I try and bring you into the content as much as I can.
And with that, the Cardi B video, which we didn't get a chance to really the same thing. Like it was the ghost hunting show, Cardi B. You did, and that's what you executed properly, and that's how we're able to look back on those and huge success.
Cardi B was. I really enjoyed that one too, because like this was the challenge of a commercial kind of aspect.
Yep.
Like we're thinking about advertising. It's like, how do you put someone inside of an advertisement like that?
Yeah.
And the same principles again. It's like, where are we?
Yeah.
And what's the point of focus?
I would consider it a huge success, considering we're at 1 million views, mostly organic.
Cool.
People absolutely loved it. It was well received, and it's all thanks to the work that you guys, you and Robert, put into it. So I can't tell you enough just how thankful I am that you guys, that you came up and approached, and we started talking, and just you've done amazing work, and you're a good guy, and I respect and appreciate you. So,
and the same goes to you. It's like we were talking the other day, and it's like this has been like an adventure for everybody involved. Like it's been fun.
It's been fun. An adventure, and no adventure can exist without a little bit of challenge.
Yes.
Without a little bit of dragon fighting to go on. But thank you for being on the podcast, man. It really means a lot. Sweaty hands. It's a little warm in the studio. It's a little warm. But thank you so much.
Of course.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Actual VR podcast. Speaking with Julian about spatial audio. He's a great friend and a really talented audio engineer. And there are so many talented individuals out there in immersive tech field that there's not enough platforms for all of them. So if you've brought any value, if you've gotten any value out of these podcasts and you enjoyed what they're talking about, you've enjoyed listening to me and to them, be sure to let us know. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things you do when you enjoy a show. You can find us on Apple Music. You can find us on Spotify, Google Play, anywhere podcasts are found, and even on Facebook and YouTube, because we do have video versions of this podcast available. As always, guys, every Friday we have the podcast, and every Monday, join us for the Actual VR show where we break down the latest in immersive tech news. But until then, we'll see you next time. See ya.